Okay, so I think people already can see us and hear us, even though we're a few minutes early. So I guess we'll let everyone gather. Okay, so now we are on time. So Ira, maybe we can pull the intro part, yeah. While everyone is gathering, we'll have our short discussion on relationship with you, right? Just for the ones who are joining right on time. Hi everyone, we're super excited to have you here. While everyone is joining, we'll do a bit of a small talk to give them all 3-4 minutes to connect. And I'm connecting today from Amsterdam. Luca, you're in Luxembourg now?
Yes.
How is it? Does it also smell like November?
It's strangely sunny for Luxembourg.
And Amanda, you have like an amazing warm light out of your window. So where are you?
I'm actually in Virginia. I don't live in Virginia, but I'm down visiting my family. So I'm here and it is a beautiful sunny day and still feels like summer. So I feel very fortunate.
Awesome. So, guys, before we do the intros, for the intros, I'll wait a few more minutes. I wanted to start with sharing our recent music advancement as a company. We built our own Spotify list out of one of my posts. So I posted for fun. I asked my followers whether they can describe their relationship with the EU regulation in song titles. And mine was Money for Nothing. We didn't expect the type of response that we got. We actually got hundreds and hundreds of songs, a lot of repeating ones actually. Mostly describing very unhealthy relationship with EU regulation, from toxic to don't stop believing or killing me softly, as you see on the screen. We pull them all together into one Spotify playlist. It's not me, it's you. So if you want to listen in, do. Luca, what would be your song there?
I would go for Don't Stop Me Now. Very Queen.
Well, I think nobody could, but but if we talk about EU regulations, Amanda, what would be yours?
I was thinking it would be a mix because it goes back and forth. So maybe I'll pick a couple songs for the moments when things are, I'll just say Under Pressure by David Bowie would be the first one when things are, looking like we've got the answer and we're going to work hard to make this framework work for us. And then I think probably the other one would be something like Mad World by Tears for Fears.
So people who are joining in, if you have the songs, please share. We will very promptly add them in the playlist, and we'll also I'll ask my team to drop the link to the playlist on the Q&A chat. So, and with this, I think we can start with the intros, right? So today, if we can pull out pull the slide with all of us. So I'm super happy, guys, to have you all today. We have a very distinguished panel. I'm sounding very cliche, but it's true. So on my side, I'm Anastasia. I'm CEO and founder of beSirius. Before that, I was head of sustainability of Eurasian Resources Group, so a roughly $10 billion metal producer. And but today I will be moderating, so the most interesting is to listen to our guests, and I'm incredibly happy to introduce Luca Marioni, ex-carb business developer in ArcelorMittal. And Luca is actually from from my experience, one of the most proactive and inquisitive AI users in sustainability space, in commercial space, in purchasing space. So I'm super excited to listen to your perspective, and especially with your previous R&D background. So thanks for being here, Luca.
Thank you for inviting. It was a pleasure.
And also from actually from the US. So thank you for joining us this morning, Amanda. Amanda, who is an executive director for UN Global Compact network in the US. And Amanda has more than 20 years of experience in leading sustainability, former Meta, former Verizon, how do I pronounce that? Verizon, and actually spent a lot of time on educating and pushing sustainability initiatives with the boards, with leadership, directly with executives and top leaders. So I'm super interested in hearing your perspective on working in those different vantage points and seeing how sustainability is changing today. So thank you for joining us today.
No problem. I'm looking forward to this.
Cool. So with this, I think we also have quite a bit of people already joining. And I see that you are following and adding the Spotify list in your accounts. So now let's go to the serious stuff. We wanted to discuss today the shift, the inflection point that sustainability as a function in corporate companies, sustainability people, sustainability professionals are going through right now. It feels like an inflection point. It feels like a massive change of the wind. The hype is over. The feeling is that regulations are back and forth, as we just discussed. There is AI pressure. There is just normal commercial pressure. So how teams are adjusting, how leading teams actually using that pressure to gain more influence, how they use it to protect the budgets, and what happens if they don't act. So that would be the focus for our discussion today. What is the shift? What are the reasons of the shift? How it is seen in the US, how it is seen in Europe and in different parts of the world that you guys experience, how you see companies adapting to that, and what would be your advice? And we will actually round up with very practical steps that companies can take, and even providing a roadmap for potential improvements and steps to gain influence internally in these changing circumstances. So with this, let's start. And Amanda, I will ask you first. First we wanted to ask who is in the room, right?
Yeah.
Guys, so who's in the room? Can you please share which functions you represent? So you should be able to see the voting option on the screen. Ira, am I correct? Or could you open the poll? Guys, if you don't see the voting mechanism, do share it in the chat, please. Okay, I guess we'll see the results later. We'll see. I guess we'll see the results later. Who's in the room? Ira, once you have them, please pull it up. And after this, we will also ask you where you are on the AI adoption. So you can vote while you listen to us. And I'll start, Amanda, with you. So with your, in the US, we all know that actually let's say that, Without blaming people and so on, let's say that anti-hype on sustainability started in the US. Late 2024, early 2025. So how do you see that anti-ESG hype or this anti-ESG backlash playing out? And together with the economic pressure, with tariffs, with geopolitics, how it reshapes sustainability work?
Great questions. Definitely an interesting time to be doing this work in the United States. I often hear peers and CSOs, colleagues in the field describing this moment as kind of slogging through the mud, wanting to make change, but feeling like you're getting some pushback, always under pressure. Someone at Climate Week last week in New York described it as really humid day. You're walking through that humidity and you just feel this pressure against your chest. It can feel like that. I think some of the ways that companies have been responding in the US seem perfectly reasonable in times like this, toning down language around ESG, climate action, even sustainability in some contexts, and using words like resilience and risk management and value creation a lot more. I think we're seeing a lot of teams facing where they may have had freer reign to do some of these sustainability initiatives and endeavors in the past. We're seeing more scrutiny by legal teams. So, every external communication goes through legal review. The report might take longer to get approval. Press releases take longer to go through, just to make sure that the company isn't more exposed to legal risks. So that's definitely a thing. Legal teams were always a partner. Now they're a very strong partner indeed. And I think, we've always, as sustainability professionals, there's this rhetoric right now about, the business case is going to have to be important from now on. The business case was always important. So as sustainability professionals, we've always been making that business case. But I think we're leaning into that now and doing more of that. And I think that's a positive thing, even though it might be in response to something that feels like negative pressure. So that's my answer to your first question. What was the second part of your question?
No, it was like, how is it reshaping the sustainability work? So how does it feel and how is it reshaping the approach? But I think you answered both. And it would be like, you mentioned that there's more legal review because there is fear of saying too much and it's better to green hash, or like, what is the undercurrent there? Why more legal reviews?
Well, I think, in the United States, we're it's a much more litigious context here in the United States. I think, yes, there's a lot more doing things more quietly to avoid certainly the attention of particular political actors. You don't want to kind of come under the microscope. There's also, very real lawsuits that have been filed in different states around different things, whether it's DEI initiatives or particular regulations or, lots of things. And so companies want to avoid generally lawsuits. And so that legal review is really around protecting the company in those cases. I think there's also just, because of all of this, a real refocus around the most material issues the company is facing, the biggest priorities. And so where you saw a lot of companies really going out there and telling their stories in the past about big goals they're setting, big ambitious initiatives, you're seeing less of that and more of an inward focus where companies are reprioritizing around 2 or 3 big areas where they know they can move the needle. And I don't think that's all bad. This is definitely in response to some negative pressure, but I think that there are positive things that can come out of that. And I think prioritizing is one of those things. In the past, companies could get away with doing all the things and responding to lots of different stakeholder demands, but they might throw a little bit of resource in different directions. Now they're having to really focus on what do we do best and where can we actually move the needle and demonstrate progress. And that's not all bad.
I personally think that's actually super positive because I remember doing my first materiality metrics, and a lot of internal stakeholders would say, well, but we cannot say that this point is less important than this because it gives a bad impression. And it feels that, I mean, that's kind of counterintuitive to the point of materiality. And as our CTO loves to say, where is attention, there is a result. So if your attention is spread out, your results are very minimal, and they're not substantial. So if you want to focus on several things and getting those things done well, and especially understanding that those things can actually bring value within the company, I personally believe that these are the conversations that we should have, and they are not easy. And it's good that today's environment, like the positive of today's environment, that it's fine to say, well, we actually decided not to follow this particular area because it's not as top of a priority for us. It's important for the world and so on, but for our company, it's less important than another topic. So fully in support, like in very violent agreement with you on that one. And Luca, so speaking of collaborating with other functions and seeing the commercial or like the resilience, the risk, the cost, the revenue part of the sustainability work. So how do you see from the seat inside of a global industrial player this shift affecting the steelmaking value chain, how the priorities are shifting in sustainability work there?
Yeah. So here again, I try to bring the point of view of all companies in the downstream value chain of a large steelmaking company like ours, which is basically majority of industrial companies. So for me, as Amanda told, Q1 was not all bad, meaning that for sure it was a reality check. Hit it hard, but finally I would say it was just a reality check, a market correction, if you pass the financial terms. Meaning that before we used to see a lot of sustainability for sustainability's sake, meaning you have to do it, you do it, but you don't know really why. What are the metrics? What is expected? We saw many companies working on CSRD, but okay, with no clear understanding of the final goal. Okay, I'm pretty harsh, but okay, this was also the reality. Yeah? And for sure, there were early adopters creating value and bringing on the agenda. But there was also a lot of buzz and hype around, which was a bit difficult to drive. After Q1, what happened is, as Amanda told, work more quietly maybe, but more focused. Meaning that now what I see in our downstream value chain is really companies looking for a value creation mechanism to go sustainable. Okay, let's make it simple. Meaning they have to build their business case. As Amanda told, business case was always there, but now it's really a matter of we have to find it and we have to work in this direction. And this has the main impact that before very often we spoke about 2050 targets, 2030, which is extremely important. But now the attention is, okay, 2050 target is there, but what can I do now in 2025? What I can do now in 2026? Where should I put the budget? What should be my metrics, my KPIs? And this, it's a big change, because especially for an industrial company like ours, where transformation is not for free and immediate, it brings a lot of challenges, but also opportunities. It's I think finally
what's the biggest attention right now? What pulls the biggest attention from the leadership now in terms of this value creation?
In terms of value creation mechanisms, we see a lot of things. It's quite various, meaning we see, as before, corporate targets, okay, which has to be filled. We see the growing impact of regulation. Okay, we know that all of us has somehow a conflicting relation with regulation, but okay, the EPPD regulation in Europe will for sure push a lot in this direction. But we also see capital, access to capital in terms of equity or green bonds, which start to get a bit more relevance. But most of you, what is interesting for us is what here we can call value in use, meaning real commercial value within the value chain, because sustainability claims in various forms, in various metrics, are requested by end users, are requested by your customers, in terms of branding, in terms of positioning. So it's something that is not just done for compliance, but it's done because it really creates value. So this, I think, is the main outcome of this strange Q1 2025.
Yeah, it felt like in Q1, everyone was just, in a wait and see mode, trying to understand what actually is happening, like in this meme where this animal is freezing. So, and all sustainability leaders were like, okay, let's see what happens. Maybe they don't, if I don't say anything, maybe they will notice that I'm here. But it's actually super interesting. So we see the commercial angle playing out much more, the business case, this, the notorious business case for sustainability, that essentially changes the perspective how sustainability teams should think. So Amanda, if teams are judged right now based on how they can prove commercial value, how does that play out from your perspective in the US, but also in the companies that you come across as in UNGC and before that?
I think absolutely it plays out in some of the ways we already touched on. Focus, really speaking to the leadership of the company and to teams about the one or two key areas where the sustainability focus needs to be razor sharp, and not ignoring, but letting some of the wider, broader initiatives continue if they need to continue, but maybe focusing in really on those one or two areas. So I think that's really, really important. Again, business fluency, financial fluency has always been important for a CSO, but now it's even more so. We're finding that CSOs in our network are having to, model return on investment more frequently. They're having to speak the language of the CFO. They're having to bring business cases to different teams. And so I think that inevitably brings a closer relationship between sustainability teams and finance and legal teams. So that's definitely something that's playing out. I also think that change management is really the crux of the job of a chief sustainability officer. That's always been the case, but now really CSOs are having to get very pragmatic and practical. And so moving away from setting those big, bold commitments, it's about embedding sustainability into procurement, into R&D, into product, into investor relations, and really doubling down on that operational integration piece. And I think that requires a little bit of a different set of thinking and skilling up for teams. It's about systems thinking and cross-functional alignment and collaboration. So there's a lot of shifts that I think are changing the way that teams need to work. And, even things like understanding regulations and the role of compliance requires, you can do that as a member of a sustainability team, and you have to, but by partnering with the legal team, you can just kind of level up that understanding and help broaden your understanding of that. So just different ways of working there. And I think flexing that muscle is kind of an opportunity for the new sustainability team. So that's what I'm seeing.
It's actually interesting now to pull the results of the poll. If we have mostly sustainability team in the room, yeah, well. Same as us. Same as us. So mostly sustainability. So that's good. I think that would be super interesting to hear how you guys see the sustainability role actually changing with all of this. And when we'll speak about this, we can also start embedding the tech angle, because we feel right now the AI hype. So we spoke about AI anti-hype. ESG anti-ESG hype, or end of hype of the ESG. And now there is a change in there is a new hype in AI. But first, let's talk about the skill set. So Amanda, you briefly mentioned on this. Maybe I'll ask Luca to develop this thought, and in the meantime, guys, maybe we pull out the poll on where do you spend most time today, or on AI adoption. Okay, no, let's stop right now with polls. Let's just ask on the change of the role of sustainability teams. Luca, what's your perspective there?
I take one word used by Amanda, which I think it's the word. It's being pragmatic, which CSO very often are not the best. Sometimes I feel following this, meaning that today we have to create business cases, okay, and very often this business case must be done in very long supply value chains. I'm in still industry, so I see very clearly value chain from mining to the owner, the IT giant building a new data center in the US. It's a very long value chain there. And we have everyone to be aligned outside the company and inside the company, as she told, financial, commercial, production, R&D, everything. So the ESG and sustainability message should be simple, pragmatically made with the clear KPIs and clear message. And this is very simple to say, very, very hard to do, because sustainability it's a complex domain. Okay, we have just to see an EPD, environmental product declaration for products, I'm quite familiar, and for those in the industrial construction may know it. We have tens of KPIs, but it's very difficult to pass and align all actors in a value chain on the same KPIs. So I think today the main role and challenge of CSOs is to be pragmatic, simplify, and bring a holistic view towards a very specific KPIs and messages to sell the concept. Sorry to use the word sell.
One of the CSOs from a very large US company told me that she thinks that the role of sustainability officer is a professional negotiator. She is, though, a former lobbyist. So she says that this is the best skill for sustainability, like for heads of sustainability in the upcoming years. But that essentially means that you need to understand the priority of every function. You need to build a strong relationship with every function, and also you need to be able to bring the agenda and like lobby for sustainability. So Amanda, what do you feel about this? You already tapped into the changing the skill set, but that actually changes the skill set fundamentally. Because based on the research right now, most of the time the team spent is on reporting, compliance, and data. How, like, actually on data gathering, like, nitty-gritty routine stuff. How does this shift on commercial lobbying, internal lobbying, negotiation, strategy, influence type of thing changes the skill set?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I think that it was those things before. It's interesting. Professional negotiator was the skill. I studied foreign affairs, kind of got my master's in that space. And I feel that I always pulled on the diplomacy skills. It's being a diplomat. It's, I always describe it as mediation, but I like negotiation too. I think it's just leaning more into that. You still have to do the other things, but it's knowing now that internal relationships are incredibly important, and you have to build those strong relationships. And in order to do that, you're really having to understand the business, what's important to each individual stakeholder, whether it's the head of operations, or it's the head of product, or head of human resources, and really kind of spend more time with those leaders and those teams to understand what they're trying to do and how your team and your priorities can be mutually beneficial there. So, I think that has always been there, but more important now. The other thing is, back in the day, we would say our jobs as sustainability officers were to work ourselves out of jobs and to really integrate this function across the business. And I think I don't know that we'll ever have an absence of a central team. I don't know the answer to that, but I do think that as a result of this hyper prioritized environment, we will see some positive change in that other teams are going to have to pick up the mantle, are going to have to do some of the implementation work, where we might have had to do more as a central sustainability team in the past for those teams. Now we have the opportunity through our mediation and negotiation to work as co-partners, co-creators, and to really expect the teams to do their part to implement in their respective areas. So, I don't know if that's going to ultimately mean the sustainability team goes away and we just kind of integrate it into teams. I don't think that's the case, but I do think there's something positive for sure there. I also believe that as CSOs, we are now expected to have a level of business acumen that would enable us to sit at the strategy table with the CFO, the CEO, the COO, what have you, and be able to argue for why this makes good business sense, and be able to also say, here are the things that aren't as strong of a business case and why we should keep doing them or why we need to stop doing them. Sometimes we hang on a little too tight to our favorite things because historically we've done them, but I think now's the time to have a little bit more intention to be able to say, we have to drop this, we have to focus on that. So I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, and actually, I'll pull the slide from our report. So we see that in in many companies, even though the internal negotiation, internal lobbying, building relationship with other functions was always important, but the overwhelming amount of compliance and reporting work would just limit your capability to do this. And in the end, teams would lock themselves in this isolation, in this echo chamber where they just read the new regulation that just drops every month and they have to figure out how they're going to comply. And I remember one of the CSOs of a large steelmaking company, not the one present, but a different one, mentioned that in the end of 2024, she said, we simply cannot do anything but prepare for CSRD because it's just such an overwhelming amount of work. We just don't have time for anything else. And all of the resources were devoted to this. And now, essentially, we have the pressure of resources reducing because, leadership loses interest in many things and the regulatory pressure is going down. Also, there are less regulations that you need to comply with, but still they're very diverse and still requirements coming from different stakeholders. They will never stop. So essentially how the skills are changing, and we see that there is a huge opportunity to build, and this is what we talk about in report, that there is a huge opportunity to build up this influence to actually take ownership of sustainability subjects in much more powerful way than before, shifting from routine and mundane work more towards strategy analysis, using innovation, building innovations within the company to improve the sustainability performance and running cross functional engagement. The reporting and data collection will not go away, not entirely, but that brings us to the topic of automation and AI. And I mentioned briefly that, Luca, you are one of the most proactive AI users and that I know. So can you tell us a little bit on how you see this AI hype playing out in industrial companies? Also, understanding that in industrial companies, the machine learning and big data was always, for many years, is a thing. Like how the new wave of this LLMs is playing out and how it is used. Is it true that every CEO needs an AI case or not?
But it's true that, as you mentioned, AI was along for a very long time with big data and machine learning. Now the center of the hype is we receive questions on we need an application on AI, and finally we have since 10 years in many other cases. But okay, if we focus on generative language models, it's true this is the hype. What I see, at least in what is surrounded by professional experience, the hype curve of AI was pretty fast going through. I think because this was a pop-driven.
As everything in AI, everything happens much faster. So this hype curve is like, I don't know, like 7-10 years, whatever, and it's like 2 years or 3 for AI.
It's fast, but let's face reality. Each one of us used the ChatGPT or equivalents at some point in life, and everyone had this wow moment, followed by, okay, let's try it for my professional work, try to ask if they can do my job, and then it was a moment in which you immediately realize that, okay, it's not the answer, but it's a tool. So I think this is the moment where we are in the industry, meaning we know it's a tool that is going to get space and which is going to use a lot of efforts and work, but it's not something that, okay, I purchase the AI, is there, and this is the answer. Okay, today it's the moment in which we must find an application, and this is the most difficult part, because all people have ideas on how to use AI. That the difficult job is to use it, meaning get your hands dirty, try it, fail it, and try again, and then once it works on a very specific task with a very specific value, then try to roll out in existing processes. Okay, I think this today is the moment, the phase of AI in industry, and I see many nice applications from compliance. Okay, the standard, okay, to compliance, but also to understand the waves of regulation which regularly come and rain upon our heads. Every new EPBD regulation wave of 400 pages, they need to be read somehow. Okay, so this is true, but also training as a mandatory. It's a sustainability in companies now. It's a cross-functional topic. We have to work with the financial people, commercial people, and every person should be trained somehow in sustainability. Okay, so internal training is also a huge element for which artificial intelligence, generative models could be. And then latest, what it's my core mission, it's business-related cases. And before I mentioned the big challenge today, it's align all actors in the value chain to bring an effect on sustainability. I think AI could do a lot on this, because each company have their own metrics, have their own targets. Those who focus on circularity, but then circularity means what? Recycled content, scrap, recycle, but only post-consumer scrap. Finally, each and every company has their own definition, their own metrics, their own KPIs. And I think AI could be a powerful tool to make these actors in the value chain speak one to another and communicate. Because if it cannot be aligned from, I speak for steel making, from the miners to the IT giant, the change would be too long and too ineffective to happen.
Yeah, and speaking of corporate functions, right? So large language models, they don't change anything that blue collars do, right? So it's more about the white collar job. So all of the routine, all of the mundane things that can be automated and pushed towards AI, so that we are actually enabled to do much more human work, such as negotiating, lobbying, and building the relationship. And I really hate a lot of this advertisement that for AI solutions that the goal say AI will not show up to work hangover or stuff like that, which is like I mean, AI will bullshit you and hallucinate and also convince you that it didn't do wrong. So like, if it's a wrong AI, so if it's a wrong employee, then like I don't like that. What I really like is like this unlocking the human genius and actually letting you do the work that you love doing, because I don't believe any sustainability officer became a sustainability officer to actually to do the copy pasting from one spreadsheet to another spreadsheet. If I'm wrong, please leave in comments that you are that sustainability officer. I'm open to be disproved.
And by
in
the way,
this business.
Anastasia, let me add one point on this. I really believe that the copy paste from one table to the other is one key element keeping brilliant people out of the sustainability work, because brilliant people do not like doing it 8 hours per day. So this, I think, it's really a roadblock, and especially in a moment when we need good people working on this, this is a problem. So you can simplify this part.
Happy to be a building block towards unlocking this barrier for talented people and working in sustainability, enabling them with AI. So Amanda, you just came back from New York Climate Week. Was there a single panel without mentioning AI?
No. In fact, one of the panels that I was sitting in on with my board chair, Ann Tracy from Colgate-Palmolive, she actually accidentally mentioned AI, and then she realized, oh, I've mentioned it. Oh, good, we can move on, because everybody has to mention it at least once. It really feels like it was part of every panel, and I don't know that it's necessary. To be honest with you, it's there. It's a technology. As Luca said, it's a tool. It's not a panacea. So I think we have to be, just as we were with the internet and all sorts of other technologies, very careful not to throw technology at the problem, but to understand the problem and what the range of solutions are. AI is not going to make any company sustainable. And it can certainly cut through complexity, but in all sorts of different ways. I think for teams right now, sustainability teams, there's a lot of pressure to take the latest shiny object and make sure we're using it. And I think that's an opportunity and a possibility, but we got to start where it's most obvious. Luca mentioned regulation reporting. I mean, navigating that, certainly you can use AI to do that. And there are many who have created AI bots and all sorts of ways to use it that way. So other teams, I know at Meta, we were getting all sorts of questions from customers, companies using our social media tools about what we were doing on sustainability. So many, it was hard to answer them by email or however they might have come in. And I can see a lot of applications for AI for that. I think it's starting where it's most obvious to your day-to-day work and not getting carried away with the hype of, look, do all these amazing things with AI. It's small applications of it to kind of pilot and experiment, and then constantly being open to new areas where it might help, and understanding where it can't. I don't think it can help in all areas. So,
and I think the audience also shares this sentiment. So we just pulled the poll that was in the background where the teams are on AI adoption, and a lot in experimenting and piloting. And what we saw from our experience, and I also was recently on the panel on AI and ethics by Anglo American, and what all speakers shared is that every successful implementation start small and then
Yes.
see where you can scale, because there are so many things that we don't know yet about AI. We cannot build governance right away. We cannot understand how risky is sharing certain types of data. So start small in less risky areas, build the business case, and grow. Luca, what is your perspective there on successful implementations in the industry on the current AI wave?
I think these are the main points. They should be find a specific application, start smaller with a very clear objective, which can be simplification and management with compliance and administration, but can be business driven, which is even better because more linked to a value creation mechanism, and then try to scale to different processes, let's say.
And I'll add that I think, again, just like we need to, as sustainability teams, work across functions, what a great opportunity to work if you have a data science team, if you have an IT team. We as sustainability professionals are not technology specialists necessarily. And so this is a really great opportunity to reach across to other teams who are and ask for help and bring them into the work. And why do you need this AI? And what is it going to help you do? Just another way of bringing along those departments that maybe we hadn't worked with as much in the past. So I think that's a huge opportunity.
Cool. And I also see some questions in this, and they actually build up to our final part of the webinar on the practical steps that teams can take. There was a question on how do we actually embed sustainability, or how do we actually become more practical in the current situation? And I think we answered to certain parts of those questions across the webinar. But if we describe this shift as a natural evolution from overhyped promises, big promises, to more mature sustainability function, what do leaders practically need to do? What actually gets the CSO influence that they need today? Maybe Amanda, we can start with you.
So if I understand the question correctly, well, let me give some example, or an example. Maybe I'll build off my example of the customer of embedding and working more practically. At Meta, I was there for 5 years, and I saw a big transformation over the last couple of years working with our marketing team and our customer focus teams, who were really the face of the business to big, large business customers who would purchase ads on the platform. And they would get all sorts of requests, as I mentioned, for what is Meta doing in sustainability? How are you improving? And oftentimes the marketing and the customer teams would come to the sustainability team saying, what can I say? Give us some language about what we can say about what we're doing. But over the last couple of years, that shifted quite significantly. We would go back and say, well, why don't you bring us into those conversations and help us understand what the businesses need, bring us into them so we can talk to them as well. And we started to see a shift where we were working much more hand in hand with the marketing and customer teams. We were hosting stakeholder dialogues. We were going and bringing together groups of companies to understand what the questions were and to meet us and start to build relations with the technical experts. And so I think that's a really good example of what embedding means. And I was really happy to see actually one of our, a leader in our marketing team at Climate Week this year, bringing together on panels companies and talking about how Meta needs to respond to, or wants to respond to, customers on these issues. So I think that's like a shift that's happened pretty quickly when you think about it over time. But some of the ways that we were able to focus much more intently on our internal relationships and dynamics and bring our colleagues along to what it means to actually do this work. And that enabled customers of Meta's to say, we need you to do this. We need you to measure the footprint of an ad, or we would like you to measure the footprint of an ad on your platform. And maybe the answer wasn't yes right away, but it was interesting. There seemed to be a lot of asks for that. So how can we think about that going forward as a marketing team and as a business? So I don't know.
So actually, I think this is an incredible point that I want to highlight that I think a lot of sustainability teams are missing, because again, they were overloaded, they just didn't have time and so on. There are actually tons of sustainability insights that you can bring to different bottom line affecting functions, sales, procurement, and to the leadership, to CFO, etc. But to gather those points, because you would never hear about them unless you go and talk to those business leaders and you try to capture what being asked, because they usually ignore that. And what we saw with our clients, right? So we saw that just capturing the demands of different stakeholders and seeing them at a larger scale, and segmenting those different customers or different stakeholders like investors, banks, customers from the US, customers from China, etc., and seeing what are the patterns there, that they need actually very different things, that you can actually start selling them different sustainability products, but how to get there. And I think you brought again the skill of professional negotiation, but I would add also like a sales skill. You actually need to sell sustainability internally constantly, especially now, and like build this business case. So this commercial acumen is incredibly important, and I think that's a big challenge, because we all, like, sustainability people often are like very like impact driven, romanticized people. So we need to get practical. we need to show the money. Luca, what's your view on that?
I think CSO teams should really get aware of their privileged position they have in the full ecosystem of a company, meaning they have a multifunctional horizontally within the company, sales, marketing, procurement, etc. But then they also are in contact with the vertical value chain, the suppliers, the customers of the customers, and then also contact with the financial stakeholders and any kind of stakeholder outside the company, from governmental stakeholders or financial or sustainability. And this is extremely precious, and it's a kind of connection hub, which is really the center of a lot of different functions, a lot of different entities, which is very rarely found within companies. So all this experience, I think it's good, and it cannot be replaced with any AI. What it's really important here is something that humans are fairly good at, and AI is maybe less good for the time being, is to have the holistic view, meaning aware of all this ecosystem gravitating around sustainability. And then the challenge here is to see the complexity, to see the multiple opportunities, but also with some pragmatic approach, which again, sometimes is difficult to have, is to find the good messages to sell, to communicate, to lobbying to each one of these different connection we might have. So
I think it means that you need to be very strong internally, and you need to be very strong externally as well. So you need to understand what's happening in the world, how the market is shifting, like where you can find the entry point, etc. And with this, I want to bring up our information partner, our favorite guys, Green Digest, who actually promoted the webinar quite a bit. And you guys, if you don't read Green Digest, I strongly recommend it. I often write that it's the sustainability space is overcrowded with news, and you receive like stuff every day. So Tuesday, Green Digest is like your combination of all of the stuff that you need to know. Ardit, who writes it, is I don't know how much he reads. It's incredible, but he does the work for you. So do follow that. But in the meantime, I think on the practical steps, we also asked our audience to, and guys, if you have any questions, please leave, because we still have a few minutes to respond to them. But we ask our audience how they want, where they are right now, where they spend time, and where they want to be. And they want to and what actually can help them to get to this point, the desirable state. So from where they are in their work to the desirable state in their sustainability work with more influence and more action. So I didn't catch the results. Ira, if you can bring it back. So, and it's actually quite, I would say, quite evenly split. So mostly it's map stakeholder needs and link to business, right? So understanding what actually your key stakeholders need. And I think materiality is good, but it's looking for, especially the technical one that looks, the regulatory one that looks at very general aspects, but like looking at the nitty-gritty details of what, like, they need footprint of the ads type of level of detail. This is what's important. And data is still like standardizing, structuring data. Of course, that's the background. No automation, no AI will work if your data is shit. So clean up the data first, and building alignment, upskilling the team, and automating reporting and admin. So these are the levers, and essentially you have to again be multifunctional team and do different stuff with this. So there is a very specific question on XBRL tagging. I'm not sure we will go into this, but it's an interesting one. How that is going to affect the transparency in sustainability, right? I think in general we're going towards. Everyone says that we're going towards more transparency. I think we're going towards a bit of a mix now, especially with a lot of legal reviews, as we discussed, and a lot of green hashing. So let's see how that turns out. But with this, speaking on the practical steps, guys, we wanted to introduce also, and we promised to give you a roadmap with very specific practical steps, effort, and payoff AR role that could be how can you use AI and technology. What are the risks if you don't do anything, and the progress signals around moving across the stages. This is the roadmap that is developed based on experience with multiple companies. Have a look. It is a really cool value material, so download it. And in the meantime, I wanted to ask Amanda and Luca to wrap up and just give me a very quick 3 things that you believe sustainability officers and sustainability teams need to do now to survive this, not survive, ride the wave, the current wave.
Shall I start?
Go ahead.
Okay. 3 things. So I think there's number 1, we talked about it. Double down on focus and getting those key priorities done and in conversation with your internal colleagues. And while you're doing that, find ways to be experimental. Compliance has pushed us in a certain direction, but we also want to create value for the company. And so finding ways to pilot, little micro innovations, little AI innovations is something that we can still do, even in a high scrutiny environment. So focus, but find ways to be experimental within that focus, I think is number 1. I think number 2 is, when we haven't talked much about this, but staying connected to peers and the global community. That's that external piece, right? I think it's important for us to remember that this pushback, this skepticism, anti-ESG sentiment is kind of hyper-localized, hyper-regionalized even. How this is playing out in different parts of the world is very different. So I have found in my new role at the Global Compacts Network USA that companies still are looking to each other, especially CSOs in different companies, for support, for learning and best practices. So I would say stay engaged with peers, find ways to get involved in networks where you will find other like-minded companies and peers trying to find ways to work through the slog, I guess, and build those relationships too. So that's my second thing, staying connected. And then the third would be staying optimistic. And I think that's the biggest job of any CSO. You know, going back to the mud, it can feel like we're walking through mud right now, but we have teams that need hope and need to know that every time the pendulum swings this way, it's usually going to swing back, and it's not that far off. This is just a moment in time. And there are lots of things that, you know, I always say that the best innovations, the best work often comes out in times of adversity. So this is just the moment in time. The pendulum's going to swing back, and sustainability is not going anywhere. So that's number 3, optimism.
Cool. Optimistic, connected, and focused. Luca, what's for you?
For me, first, it's to be focused on maybe smaller topics, but really to focus on the added value we all have. Okay, we generate value when speaking about sustainability. Second is we spoke a lot on this. It's find a way to communicate across functions, across actors in the value chain, external stakeholders. This lobbying and communication, it's a real effort to be done to find the good messages, the good metrics. It's important. And then maybe it's a bit inflated. Think out of the box, meaning we have been trying to bring a new element in business as usual in all sectors with sustainability, from IT to industry to consultancy, all this completely new element coming into the business. So we cannot think to bring answers using the same processes and the same approach as before. So sometimes there is a little part of disruptiveness. I don't know if it exists, the word, but okay, to be a bit disruptive sometimes and think out of the box for new solutions,
So
not just marginal improvements of the old ones.
Disruptive, understanding the priorities, and understanding the value drivers. Cool. That's your recipe for success, guys. So thank you all for spending time with us. It was an amazing turn up. Thank you, Amanda and Luca. Those are incredible insights. Guys, for practical steps, download the roadmap and stay tuned for our next executive webinar, developing more on the topic of sustainability premiums. So thank you, Amanda and Luca, once again. It was amazing. Fantastic to have you as speakers, and have a good rest of the day. Cheers.
Thank you.